is we're going to do something that we don't normally do because it's intimidating, but we're going to try to actually answer your questions that you ask in the live chat. It's really hard for us to talk and to read the live chat at the same time. So we don't normally do this, but the live videos have been a little bit quieter lately, so
it should be.
It makes it for a little bit less intimidating.
And whatever questions you have, ask away. But perhaps we should talk about
the rules.
Are there rules?
Yeah, there is rules. Okay, so if you have a question, put it in all caps, right? So you guys can talk to each other in the chat, but if you have a question that you want us to answer, put it in all caps and try to make it like as simple of a sentence as possible, right? Like if it's like a wall, it'll be hard for us to read. And if we don't answer your question, ask again.
But didn't you put up a community post that had people ask their questions?
Oh, that wasn't specifically for this.
Oh, okay.
That was just, yeah. So we also, what Ian's talking about is I put up a community post yesterday, I think, where I was asking what kind of questions you guys are interested in knowing for us to plan for, 2022's videos. And also just to know what kind of things you guys like to see in our videos, and what you'd like to see more of. So if you haven't seen that yet, and you have some insight.
Ooh, favorite cat. Well, Bo is our top tier cat. So Bo's currently our favorite. Our all-time favorite cat kind of has to be Sadie. She passed away last year?
Yeah.
But she's had so much attitude. She's hilarious, right? She'd come up to you. She's like hang out with the kids, and if they stepped out of line, she'd bite them. Which is just so funny to see. She just instantly would be like,
speaking of cats,
going right to the bites. But then this little guy here who just came in, he's been doing good lately. He's been doing good.
He cries a lot.
He cries a lot, but he's so good with the kids, and he hasn't puked on clean dishes in a little while. Sometimes he goes up to the top of his cat stand and then he pukes from the top down onto everything below. But he hasn't done that lately. Best dried flowers.
Okay, so I saw a few. Have we sold any wreaths yet? No.
We
haven't sold any wreaths yet. But the reason why we haven't sold any wreaths yet is, so the video that we just released where we talked about the wreaths was actually from last weekend. We just, we were busy editing the other video. And at that market, because we didn't really go into it much, because we didn't want to be talking about the market much while we were at the market. But there's someone else who was selling evergreen products. That's all they had. So they had evergreen wreaths, they had evergreen arrangements. So they all there was competition. There was other decorative wreaths too, people selling lavender wreaths and stuff. So, and then the market was really quiet. It was
it's not like the market was really quiet for what the market was.
Okay, yeah.
But it's quiet in comparison to, the Kelowna Farmers Market where 10,000 people can go through in the summer markets, right? You can't get that kind of traffic.
Well, and I've done other craft fairs, not for the farm, mm-hmm. but before I was selling kids stuff. And it was slow for any sort of Christmas market. And Ian doesn't have as much of, Ian never did those Christmas markets with.
Well, no, but I showed up them. I know what you're saying. Those definitely had more people coming through, but those were also downtown Kelowna usually.
I mean,
or an inside.
I would say that this market was as slow as the slowest Christmas market mm-hmm. I'd ever done. I sold more at this market.
Yeah.
Right? Than what I did having baby stuff.
Yeah, but, I mean baby stuff was impossible.
Yeah.
Because it was so cheap. And and then everybody wanted a 30-minute, let's talk about babies or how to use this baby product,
Mhm.
you know, like amount of customer service time for like a $5 purchase. But
Okay, sorry.
the point is,
have you sold any wreaths? At the market, we didn't sell any, but there was competition and it was quiet. And then we were going to sell on the roadside stand, but we've had like lots of snow since then.
Yeah.
And so we haven't opened up the roadside stand and we haven't tried to sell the wreaths. So no, we haven't sold any wreaths, but it's not because the wreaths can't sell. It's because we haven't been trying to sell them. So
we probably missed our window too. Because
yeah, it's getting pretty late now.
It's, you know, the middle of December.
Yeah.
And so nobody's gonna buy a wreath.
The market was the good time to try to sell them.
Yeah.
You know, beginning of December.
I think even November. I think middle of November.
Last week of November.
Lots of people were saying that they wanted to see a bow on the wreaths.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Like I get it, and I know that people do it, and I'd be willing to experiment. But there is a cost to a bow. A bow costs money.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the natural look. You know.
I think that.
But I
agree with the people that
they could be fuller, and I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Part of what we were doing is just a bit of experimenting. I would have liked to had some experimenting more with the selling, but we just didn't get there this year. You know, a lot of times it's hard to understand. Like you make wreaths and then you don't even try that hard to sell them. Like why would you do that, right? But it's all about future years having an understanding of how much time it takes to make the wreaths and what customers say when they see them. We still got some feedback, so I think that next year we can make a stronger showing with the wreaths.
Yeah, no, I think wreaths can sell. I bought the wreath clamp because it's like, you know, makes making wreaths infinitely easier. And I bought it also for doing with the dried flowers. It's just intimidating because the dried flowers are so fragile that no matter what, just getting to experiment with it with the evergreen is something that had to get done anyways, so that I'm ready to do it for dried flowers.
Speaking of Christmassy stuff, the reason Serena's sweater is so festive right now is because we were earlier today we were filming what will probably be our next video, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe to get it out for tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's a dried flower Christmas tree video where we took our what used to be our Christmas tree before we were getting live ones. We had like an old artificial one, and she just packed it full of dried flowers, and it looks really good. So,
and speaking of dried flowers, so I just scrolled back. So, best dried flowers or best flowers to dry is statice and straw flowers. You know, they're the classic. Yeah. Super easy to dry them. You could even just have them in a vase, and they dry. You don't even have to hang them.
Yeah, we have one bouquet that just was on our windowsill, and everything else dried gray, and then the status is like
neon color.
Yeah,
and the texture, and they hold the color for a really long time. So those are the best. And there's a bunch of other like similar where they have that like crusty sounding type stuff that dries really well. And then someone else, there was another dried flower question.
Somebody asked about these CSA.
Okay, so I'm just trying to remember what the other dried flower question
Okay, well, you think about it. I'll talk briefly about the flower CSA. It went okay. It was kind of, it was a bit of extra work outside of the normal workflow. So that was a bit annoying.
You should explain what that.
So like normally, like Serena's harvesting on Wednesday or Thursday, all the flowers to arrange for the Friday for the market. But because the flower CSA was on a Wednesday pickup or something like that, you're also harvesting on a Monday and a Tuesday. So it kind of, it isn't the most efficient work, but there is potential in it if it was big enough that we could do, if we had like a bunch of people, there's a community down the road from us, if there was 15 people buying bouquets from a CSA that were all in that area, we could do like a delivery type option, and that could make it worthwhile. We're not sure if it's going to be around next year. It's not
Yeah,
like it was
so-
crazy
okay.
profitable or anything.
So the reason why I did the CSA in the first place is that I wanted to see if anyone on YouTube was like a local customer for us. I didn't advertise the CSA anywhere except for on YouTube. And it was kind of like it was my test to see if we have local people who are buying from us who are on the YouTube, and we did. We had a few people, and but then there was a few extra CSAs, and so they sold. And so what happened with the CSA, and I wasn't listening because I was scrolling through questions, was there was a lot of communication, and then there was also like there was confusion. You know, I was like, hey, I like the CSA is ready. Gotta come get the CSA. You know, and then
we got bouquets sitting out for 2 days before they get picked up.
It was just a lot of coordination, and you know, our intention is we want it to be easy for the customer.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's the reason why we've set up this roadside stand thing. And we don't really feel like doing a CSA is making anything easier for our customer. It's if anything, it's making it harder for our customer because they could just stop at the roadside stand any day of the week that they want a bouquet and grab the bouquet.
That's our opinion on the CSA, is that when we have a roadside stand set up, you know, our CSA customers can just instead be, you know, roadside stand customers. They can get the same value from it, except they can customize, you know, everything to what their current needs are more so than, you know, here's your $20 of groceries, or here's your, you know, $20 bouquet every 2 weeks. You know, like it's more, hey, you know what? I need a bouquet. I need some lettuce. I'm going to stop at the roadside stand.
Yeah, because almost every single person in the CSA, because so the CSA was every 2 weeks, and almost every single person missed one of their bouquets because they were on vacation.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, if you know, we can't plan for other people's vacations when setting up a CSA. But if you're on vacation, you don't have to buy a bouquet. And it would be different if we were selling out of bouquets. If we were selling all of our flowers. But we're at the point where we always have more flowers. So it's not like a CSA is a promise that you're going to get a bouquet, whereas the roadside stand is like, well, maybe there'll be something, maybe there won't. You know, we can pretty much guarantee we always have the ability to sell a bouquet.
Yeah.
Just because we're producing more than we're selling.
I think my favorite part about having the CSA was that you got to make a larger bouquet. Yeah. It was an excuse to do that.
And that was part of the intention. We made it be like a $30 bouquet so that I could play with what it would take to put together $30 bouquets. And so it was, you know, Sam's bringing Bunny. So it was work, but it was also work that was valuable to me because every, you know, how many bouquets was there? Was it like 5 weeks? Was it 5 weeks though, or 6 weeks?
I think it was 5. Yeah.
I can't. It's 5 or 6 weeks. So basically, I got to learn how to make these $30 bouquets over the course of the summer.
And just like the year before when we had the $10 bouquets and then the $20 bouquets were different, the $30 bouquets were different as well. You know. I can come.
Daddy will come because so
somebody asked what zone we're in.
Okay.
5.
Okay, so and then just to say again, so we are answering questions that you guys put up, but it's really hard for us to read all the comments. So if you have a question, put it in caps and make sure to make it like a brief question so we can read it quickly. Just try to keep it sorted. Okay, so what zone we're in? We are in the Canadian Zone 6 or an American Zone 5. And we are, you know, because there's Zone A or Zone B, depending on if you're a little bit warmer, Zone 5, or a little bit colder. And I feel like we're like a Zone 5A. We're a little bit colder of a Zone 5. But we do have a pretty good window for growing season. Our last frost is beginning of May, and our first frost is usually mid-October. And then we get hot summers. So we are cool. We do have a colder zone, but we are still like a pretty solid growing area. But the zone specific starts to come into play a lot for the perennials. Okay, so the other dried flower question, I found it, is how did the okay, I'm losing too many words in my head. Okay, the silica gel beads for drying dried flowers. That was what the question was, if we did that. And so we did do it, and we did sorry, I'm distracted by the question because I'm like, haha. Okay, so we did it. We showed putting it in, and we showed taking it out too. But they're in like the harvest vlogs. We don't have like a standalone video about doing it. But they turned out really well. They were cool. Do you remember?
Yep.
You're non-committal on it? I don't like they were a totally different look. And like I feel like because lots of people don't like what the zinnias look like dried, just hanging up to dry, because they get like dark and they look like dead flowers.
Yeah.
Legitimately. I like them. I think they look cool. But in the silica, they look really nice. And stuff like dahlias, which don't really look that great when they dry, look like really great in the silica. And we did sunflowers too, and they dried.
I think next year we'll probably make a much bigger effort.
Yeah. Part of it was we got it, and it was like kind of the very end of the season. So we loaded it up, and then we're just having like health stuff. It would like things kind of started.
I'm sure people who watch our channel a lot noticed that we stopped making videos for a while as well, or slowed down a bunch.
Yeah.
Because we've just been having a bunch of like health stuff and just life.
Yeah.
When we're both running at kind of 100%, and then something happens, it's like there's so much work that gets prioritized above even like YouTube or farm work, just like keeping the household running with kids and stuff. So everything fell apart for a while, but now we're not quite back, but we're able to put some time into YouTube again.
And we're making a plan for making things be a little bit more manageable for next year. Because so one of the things we've been talking about a lot in these live videos, and is like a pretty solid, like we've decided, is we're gonna grow mainly flowers.
Yeah.
And then we also are gonna grow for selling carrots, and we're gonna grow salad mix also for selling, because those are the two products that we actually make money on. Yeah,
they're easy sells. People like
people want to buy them.
Yeah, and we just don't want to have too wide of a scope, because every single thing that you do takes a specific amount of effort to maintain. So streamlined. We don't have the employee again next year. We'll have a different employee, but there's no way that they'll be as good as the employee.
We'll see.
We'll have more. We'll probably hire multiple people and then split up the work. Yeah, I think we should have multiple.
I thought that's a different conversation.
People have been asking about Christmas ornaments. Did you answer that?
I didn't see the question.
There's been a couple of quick questions about it. So we don't have it set up exactly to sell them yet. I imagine that by next year, in plenty of time for Christmas, you're gonna have a plan to.
Yeah. So I don't have boxes to ship them, so I'd have to get boxes. I am going to ship a few of them to like friends, so that I can see what's involved in shipping, and get an idea of like costs. Because I can go online and get estimates, but then when you go and you actually ship stuff, the price is different. So I can, get some estimates and then compare it to like what the actual shipping cost is. And then I'd probably try to order the stuff so that I'd have it on hand for early summer. And then we get them ready online in an online store for like September,
Yeah.
October.
And just to go back on the previous point, because we were talking about how we're not going to be growing a bunch of food. We're still going to have a ton of veggies.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of content on growing food.
Just it'll be more of our garden for ourselves, us growing veggies.
Yeah.
Like tomatoes and zucchinis and stuff like that. Just that we're not going to do that on the farm level. Now,
yeah, if anything, we'll probably be growing more variety of food than we have been in the past, because we have been choosing what we grow to be stuff that we would sell. So we've been not growing a lot of things that we enjoy, just because we were too busy, right? So we've only been growing the things to sell on the farm, and then we just eat whatever's left over. Whereas now we can grow all those things that we used to like to grow.
Yeah. And also our thinking is, if the business builds up, we can always start reintroducing food crops as kind of on a profitability level. Somebody asking about how long it took us to get 100,000 subscribers.
How long have we been doing YouTube?
Was it 4 years or 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. So it took us about 4 years. It took us about 2 years to figure out how to make like a good YouTube video that would appeal to a lot of people. There's a lot of different skills you have to learn when you take on YouTube. And then from there, things started building, but it really didn't do too much for the first 2 years. It was like slow. It was a slow burn. And then
last year it did okay, and then this year it did quite well for us. So another question is, what made you decide to be a flower farmer? And Ian and I were just talking about that today, because we were talking about what our favorite flower is.
What's your favorite flower?
Do you remember?
I do.
Okay, tell them what my favorite flower is.
Serena's favorite flower is money.
Which is a joke, but also true. But there is a little bit of a backstory, which I always think is fun, about us starting a flower farm. So when we started the YouTube, we were in like a residential place. We had a yard. We had a pretty good backyard, and we had our whole backyard turned into garden. We were growing lots and lots of food. And we had an Instagram account, because we were like weirdos. We're always like, come see our garden, come see our garden. And people were like, you're a stranger, I don't want to come into your backyard.
Come on, postman, come check out our, you expressed a vague interest in what we were doing in the front yard, come see the back.
So we started going on Instagram, because, it's totally socially acceptable on Instagram to share what your garden looks like. And the Instagram is what then led to the YouTube channel. But when I was first on Instagram, somehow to this day, I don't know how I got into this group, but I ended up getting in this Instagram messaging group of flower farmers, and it was all people, we all liked each other, stuff. We all talked on each other's, and then we talked about what is going on with Instagram together. But everyone else was flower farmers except for me. I was this backyard vegetable gardener, and I don't know if they accidentally put me in the group, or if one of the people was I like this girl, I'm gonna put her in. But so they were all kind of newer flower farmers, and so I was fly on the wall to all of these conversations of these newer flower farmers. And, I got this inside scoop into flower farming, which is something that I kind of never really thought about, because
Serena was always obsessed with growing food, but she wasn't obsessed with growing flowers. We started growing flowers when we had a year where our garden didn't produce very many zucchini, and we were like, oh, nothing's getting pollinated. So we decided to grow some flowers specifically to bring pollinators into our garden. Yeah. And
which is the ultimate story of we started growing flowers so that our vegetables would grow better.
Yeah. Just that was our path to it. But I think as you start to do it, you get different reasons that come into play. And I think that we found that the visual impact of having a beautiful stand of flowers, uh, we just felt like that was our strategy is to try to make the most beautiful farmers market stand possible.
Yeah.
And flowers were a necessity for that. And then I it's furthered for me because I like being a flower farmer and I find motivation in it because when people see like a farm stand that has beautiful flowers in it, they come up to it and they're already kind of in this state where they're more willing to make small talk, they're more willing to be social, they're excited, they're looking at these beautiful things. So it's just a fun way to interact with people that you don't talk to all the time, like to have this like in to say, hey, how's it going, and just because I'm a chatty person, but
So you like
I like the
selling
social. I like
flowers?
selling flowers. I like the social aspect of selling flowers, and that keeps me motivated to be a flower farmer.
Can I ask, like, is it more like social? Is it like the people who come up, like there's more people who want to talk about the flowers than the veggies?
It's more so that like sometimes because I've worked forestry for many years, and my face can sometimes be like like this hard to approach, like not smiley, not happy person looking thing, even though inside my head I'm like a happy person. But the outside look can be pretty gruff. And so it's hard to just make small talk sometimes with people, even though like we have a YouTube channel. Obviously we both like to talk, right? And I like to talk. I like to talk to people. I like to ask them questions about, like, hey, how's your day going? And then just riff on, whatever they say, right? Just to because it's interesting. It's interesting to talk to other people. And so it's more about people, people coming up and being like willing to be social. More so, it's more about.
But like, so it's just
It's not.
It is more so than the veggies.
Yeah, well, the veggies can bring up different conversations. They can be different people. Just people are really drawn in by the flowers. People see the flowers and they're like, "Oh my God, that's so pretty."
I mean, the thing, I never thought we'd be a flower farm. The plan with the flowers was always that they were like a side hustle to the veggies.
Yeah.
That was like always the intention, that they'd be there, but they'd be complementary to the veggies. But they did like, the reason why we're going towards the flowers is like
they
really
sell so much better.
Good, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't see any growth in our veggie sales from last year.
Yeah.
Which is bad, right? Like legitimately, like we're going from year 2 to year 3. We had way more growing. We were growing better, but we weren't selling anymore.
Yeah.
So atrophy is the same as like your business failing when you're trying to grow it.
Yeah.
But the flowers, like the people just really responded. And the other thing about the flowers is it's not like we're the only person with flowers at our farmers market, right? It's not like, oh, no one else has flowers and we brought flowers and therefore the flowers sold. We definitely have competition at the flowers at the farmers market, and they still sold really well.
Yeah.
So and like you guys too on here, you're like, I don't know what it is that I'm doing, because I assume I'm doing everything wrong when it comes to flowers, because I like break all the rules and I don't know the rules even to know that I'm breaking them. But it seems like people like have responded really positively to whatever it is I'm doing with the flowers.
It's kind of funny because team flowers, team veggies, but Serena was the one who was like, I think we need to just maybe look into growing just flowers next year, and we kind of compromised on still growing the carrots and the lettuce, and then I'm team flowers, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really want to step away from growing the food too much. The other part of the compromise is we're still going to have such a large family garden that it's like we can still make all the food growing content that we want. But all of this effort is part of our desire to kind of spread this message about supporting local farmers and like local food systems. And so I was worried that stepping away from the food just for the flowers is kind of undermines our message of like supporting your local food systems. But the flowers also help us get the message out there further, right?
My thing about the support your local food systems is, grow your own. It's not like you have to buy from a farmer at the farmer's market. You like grow your own too. And we're not growing the food because people aren't supporting their local food systems, right? Like if people were buying our food, we wouldn't have to make this decision to grow only flowers. And so it can't only be me, right? I can't grow for free forever.
Yeah.
Right? And so as much as what we're doing is like, I don't think that for next year we're going to team flowers. In my mind, I'm like, we're only growing our profitable crops.
Yeah.
And the reality is there's 3 things that we've like made more than negative dollars on. And that is flowers, carrots, and salad mix. Everything else we lose money on.
Yeah.
And that I was fine with losing money. 3 years. Thank you. Thanks so much, Lisa. You are amazing. I was fine with losing money because we were building a business, right? You need to make these risks. You need to take these experiments in order to, build the basis for your business. But it's not work. After year 3, it's not working, right? And then we had, we were already going at 110%, and then we had this like health hiccup, and that made it so, we can't just keep doing what we've been doing. We can't work every minute of every day and lose money.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's unsustainable, right? So
my vision is that next year we start selling some serious bouquets from our roadside stand. That's what my goal is if we can really start getting people pulling over using the roadside stand, then that opens up the future where maybe those people can be more food customers.
Yeah, totally.
Even just carrots and salad mix at a larger scale, right? Like we're gonna have some to sell next year, and if it's like it just keeps selling out, because people do buy that from the roadside stand.
Yeah.
But people don't buy zucchinis. They don't buy eggplants.
Well, they buy everything from the roadside stand.
They still don't buy those things that are hard sells at farmers markets.
Yeah, they don't buy as much.
Yeah. They still focus on like the bags of greens we're selling and the carrots we're selling. So, maybe we just have this like selection of crops and flowers that we end up focusing on. And then, in future years, we ramp it up. So we're growing a lot of carrots, we're growing a lot of salad mix, and we're growing a lot of flowers. And that's kind of like the range. And then we have this well-established customer base that's just pulling over, and, like the business is profitable, which is what we're going for.
I would rather do something well than do 10 things poorly.
Yeah.
Right? And that's basically what the plan is for next year. Right? The plan for next year is and it's also not a risk, right? Because we can grow whatever we want, and we can like change we can decide in the spring, oh, you know what, we want to grow more food. I have seed on hand, so I could do exactly what we did this past year again. Right?
Yeah.
Like just without having to buy seed, right? So it's not like
we're not locked into any decisions forever.
But we just
maybe scroll and find some of those questions.
What's the saying about insanity, right?
Doing the same thing over.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? We've done 3 years of the farm and it hasn't worked. Yeah. We're not profitable, right? So let's do a big shake up and then we can add on in future years.
Somebody was asking.
Will you get more tomato content next year?
Yeah, for sure. We're still gonna have like tons of tomatoes because we're tomato-based life forms. Somebody was asking about the market fee. The Saturday farmers market is $40, and then I think there was a $10 membership fee that was at the start of the year, or $20 or something like that. There was like a one-time fee that you have to pay every year. And usually the farmers markets, depending on how many you do, you eventually get enough so that you're kind of like a member for the year. Like if you do 20 farmers markets, we don't make it because we only do the one. You have to do the Saturdays and the Wednesdays, or the Saturdays and the Sundays, or something too. Which
is something I was thinking about. That maybe we want to do more than one market.
But there's also I think another market that we did. I think that one we did that was the last video was $25. I think is what the cost was. It wasn't $40.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smaller ones are like in the $20-$25 range.
What was do you remember the price for our local one? The Lake Country one? Was that like $30?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
It was cheap.
Yeah. Okay, someone was asking about competition, and they were asking about that that popped up when we were talking about at the farmers market. So they might be asking about how many other people are
there's a lot of other farms selling food crops, which you probably heard us talk about it before. That makes it so that customers who want to support local food kind of share their purchasing through all the different farms. So it means that so a customer who's going to spend $40 in groceries at the farmer's market might only spend $5 of that dollar with you, and
they'll buy carrots from us and lettuce from someone else. And potatoes
to support everybody, right? So
I think specifically they were asking about how many other flower farmers
there's kind of like 3 at that market in peak season. There's 3 big ones,
including us.
No, 3 others.
Like the person across from us.
Yeah.
The flower farm.
Yeah.
And then the cheap sunflowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's 3 where people buy the majority.
But then other vendors will bring in like a handful of bouquets because like there's lots of people there that have that are into gardening, and
some of the other farmers will bring like a few.
But there's kind of like 3 vendors that the bulk of what they're offering is flowers, and one of them kind of does like a build your own thing for a bunch of the weeks where you can like they kind of have 2 tents and you can like choose what you put together,
or they
you
don't
can
bring
have like
them
minimal
done.
bunching.
They just bring loose flowers and they make them while they're there.
Now the thing about
there's another one who makes a lot of the stuff while they're there, and they'll sometimes have like a lineup because they sell for like super low prices.
Yeah. And one of the things to remember about what we do that I think can skew what you are expecting us to be able to accomplish is that most of the vendors that are doing like farm stuff are multiple people. Like there's a couple other farms that are just like that. It's like me, where it's like the guy goes and takes everything to the farm and sets up the farm at the stand
for veggies.
The flowers are all, I think, two or 3 people operations.
Or more.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 people making bouquets.
And we just do it just me almost all the time. So that makes us a little bit more efficient. We have to sell a little less because if you're paying somebody, it's hard to find anybody for less than $20 an hour, really $15-$20 an hour where we live.
Minimum wage.
Wage is
over $15.
Yeah, is in BC here.
And then you have to pay, like, as an employer, there's costs on top of wages.
Yeah.
To have employees.
So it's fair to say that you're paying $20 an hour. And then, if you're going to bring someone in for a market for 6 hours or 8 hours, if they're doing the setup and the takedown and stuff, you're talking about having to sell, 2 more buckets worth of flowers just to cover the sales costs of bringing in an extra person, right? So for us, the math hasn't really worked out to the point where it's worth it, where we're like, I don't feel like we're missing out on sales because
yeah, no, totally.
A little bit of a lineup for customers doesn't hurt your market stand.
No,
it
it's
actually
definitely a good thing.
it brings more customers in. It like gets people being like, whoa, what's going on over there, right? The scarcity mindset.
We joke with the farm stand. The people pull over when someone else is pulled over, and we're like, oh, we should just like get a car and like park it in front of the farm stand.
Yeah.
Every time we like sell in front of the house, it just get more people.
If it wasn't for the fact that people will, like, when they pull off for the farm stand, it's not so bad now, but when we would like set up out there and people would pull off in the summer, then they'd get back after buying stuff and they do like a U-turn just right out in front of traffic. And there was multiple times where we almost had accidents.
Yeah, we're like, don't kill yourself. Okay, so another question: will you make dry flower wreaths? So yes. The intention, that was like kind of the intention, that over the winter, and I can't, the video that just went out on the weekend, which is like about the market, the Christmas market, and there's tons and tons of stuff in there about the dried flowers. If you guys haven't watched it, I think it's a great video, so I highly recommend. But yeah, so when I was editing that was like a little bit of a beast to edit. There was over 2 hours of footage. So there was a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, this is like great info, that I edited out just because the video couldn't be an hour long. But now I'm trying to remember what I was saying. Oh, so I think I edited it out. I don't think I left it in. But Ian was talking about how the plan with the dried flowers isn't even necessarily to sell them for Christmas. I think that in the future, we probably could have a lot of potential with them as like a Christmas fair item. I'm really excited about those Christmas ornaments. I've seen pictures of other people doing them, and I was kind of like, meh. I wasn't super impressed. And then in person, they looked way better. And I think that maybe I have one here. I think one of the things about why I think these worked out so well is they're not balls, right? They're flat, right? The balls, I think they wouldn't look as good. I think because these are flat, so it's kind of more, you can view it from either side. I think that's what makes these specifically, it's what I like so much about them. I'm getting off topic. But yeah, so the idea with the dried flowers is that they're gonna be more of like a spring item. And I think probably I'm gonna make a push for selling them for Valentine's Day. That'll kind of be my first, like, hey, buy dried flowers, like buy like local, like don't ship in roses from the other side of the world. Buy these like local flowers. And then I want to make wreaths over the winter so that when we have those first early farmers markets, we'll have these beautiful, bright, dried flower wreaths, and those very early, so we can start selling in April. We'll have some tulips. We'll also have the dried flowers. And that's kind of the idea, to have the wreaths. So we did buy the wreath clamp. So I showed doing the evergreens, but I want to try doing the wreath clamp with the dried flowers. I don't know how it will work because the dried flowers are so brittle. It might take some playing with, but if not, I also have like frames, and then you get the wire and you wire them on. They take a lot of work. So I've kind of been procrastinating on them because I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not ready to get into it. I think what I'll probably do is I'll make, I'll be like, I want to have 200 dried flower bouquets, and I'll make up the bouquets first, and then I'll take whatever's left over and I'll turn all the leftovers into wreaths, just so that I've dealt with all the dried flowers, and then I can have, be ready only with dried flower product, try to sell it all year, and start saving. So I'm not saving flowers from year to year. And maybe we'll look into trying to wholesale them somewhere. That's like another idea I've been kind of thinking of. Someone was asking if we've ever been to Pike Place Market. I've never been, but I look at it online all the time. There's some really cool stuff. I definitely, some of the flower farmers that sell at the Pike Place Market have stuff that's inspiring. Someone saying that they have a flower farm and they're always looking for ways to expand their market. I think the dried flowers are actually like a great product. They were they were super trendy in the 80s, right? I have all these bad memories of dried flowers that were probably bought in the 80s and then left until the 90s, and they had a decade of dust and fading and sadness, and I was like, ew, dried flowers, gross. But I don't know. I really feel like the dried flowers are seeing a comeback in not just like a blip, not just like, oh, people like dried flowers for a minute and then they're gone next year. I think we probably have a good decade of dried flowers. And I think that they're going to get more and more mainstream. I think we're on the bell curve of into the trend of dried flowers, right? I had someone who was like, I want to do dried flowers for a wedding. Someone looking for dried flowers for a wedding. They're in stores. I was in the mall and there was a clothing store and they had dried flowers for sale. So I think we're slowly gonna only the hip trendy people have them, and then it'll kind of get into that saturation and it'll stay there for a bunch of years before kind of fading out, and other people have bad memories of, because someone will buy a $200 beautiful dried flower arrangement and then keep it collecting dust and getting faded and sad for a decade. Yeah, let's see. Did you find Salanova lettuce to be good market value? Salanova lettuce is the best lettuce. We obsess about Salanova all the time. So the reason why Salanova is so incredible, beyond just that it's amazing and it tastes good, is that Salanova it has really good shelf life after you pick it, right? So we've had people tell us with the Salanova lettuce bags that we've sold them that they had it in their fridge and it was good for 3 weeks, right? So that's just crazy. And then it's heavy, right? So for us selling the salad mix, we sell it by the weight. So the Salanova, and I get it, the seed is expensive. The first time I went to buy a Salanova lettuce, I was like, oh, really? Is it really that good? And then we started growing it. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't care. I don't care how much money it is. We're only growing this forever from now on. But it's really heavy, right? So because it's heavy, you don't need as much to fill the bag, right? So because of that, you can sell it for more money, basically, compared to other varieties of lettuce. So just for that calculation, you can, in the same amount of space, you can grow more pounds of lettuce. Makes it very easy to justify for a choice on the farm. And then Ian and I are upset. We don't like lettuce salads. Before we moved here and started growing Salanova lettuce, we would eat, in the summer we would eat tomato and cucumber salads, and then in the fall we would eat salads that were cabbage and shredded carrots and shredded beets, raw beets. We would not eat lettuce salads. And I'd always grow a tiny bit of lettuce, but I'd be like, why am I even growing this? I don't want to eat it. It's gross. I don't like it. We'd grow the giant red mustard. I like the mustard. I was like, why would I want to eat lettuce when there's an infinite number of better things to eat? But then we started growing the Salanova, and it was okay, now I get it. Now I get why someone would want to eat lettuce, because this lettuce is incredible. So for us personally, we feel great recommending it to home gardeners too, even though the seed's so expensive, because we've never had a lettuce that we've liked in the way that we've liked the Salanova. We want to eat it all day, every day. So we think it's worth the money too. Okay, another question. What's your favorite tomato? So my favorite tomato is Juliet. It is dry and not super sweet. And I like a nice firm I like when the flesh is like firm on a tomato. So I like the dry firmness of the Juliet. It's basically like a mini Roma. And then it's like perfect size for snacking, and I like that it like chops up really nicely because it's nice and firm. You can chop it for a salad, and it doesn't just go to mush. And I like a tomato that's not super sweet. I like it because I feel like it tastes like what a tomato should taste like. It doesn't taste like candy, it tastes like tomato. And then Ian's favorite, which like Ian bounces around a lot more. I'm like, Juliet, that's all I need. Whereas he's like, no, I want the mix. And we love cherry tomatoes. It's hard to beat having this mix of cherry tomatoes. But Ian's favorite is he loves Sun Gold because they're like candy. He used to always be like, make sure to grow me the Sun Gold tomatoes. The little orange cherry tomatoes. They're like summer sunshine in flavor form. So I'd say that those are our favorite tomatoes, but we grow like a million different tomatoes. Everyone else's favorite tomato, because we grew this, we grew this because sorry, I'm trying to scroll through to find the next question. So pink Berkeley tie-dye was all of our customers' favorite tomato. They all were like, this is the best tomato I've ever had. So this last year, it was the only tomato that we grew because we grew this like mix. We had this beautiful color blend of all these like fun heirloom tomatoes, and it looked beautiful. I was looking back at some footage from the year before today, and I was like, man, those tomatoes were so pretty. But the only ones that sold were the pink Berkeley tie-dye. So we were like, no, only pink Berkeley. We can't grow tomatoes, are so much work. So if they don't sell, we can't grow them. So we grew just the pink Berkeley tie-dye. And people really like that tomato. It has a really good, rich flavor. Okay, someone's asking, do you sell via Facebook? So we put up local marketplace ads. We just put it in the marketplace. We don't normally pay for ads. I think we did an experiment once, where in the spring we paid for an ad and we pushed it out into our local area, and it did okay, but it didn't necessarily do way better. And so we usually get a little bit of interest from the Facebook marketplace. I would say that we get a lot more interest on the flowers than we do on the veggies. People, I feel like we get a lot more word of mouth. So what we did our very first year is we sold at our farmers market that is in our tiny community. And it actually had a really good turnout. A lot of the local people came down and shopped at that market. And we basically would spend the entire time we were at the market just chatting everyone up, oh, we're just up the road, we're always there, we sell on the farm, if you like, oh, it's Friday, but don't worry if you eat it all, you can come see us midweek. So we kind of built a customer base in that first year, and then I feel like we have a lot of word of mouth. People are like, oh, I've heard of you. So for the veggies, there's a lot of competition in our area. We're in an agricultural area, so we do get some attention, but the flowers, I feel do really, really strong on Facebook. People see it and they want it. They're looking for more options of places to get flowers. And I feel like sometimes people buy flowers from us at the farm, and they're not comparing buying flowers from us with buying flowers from a florist. They're comparing buying a bouquet from us with buying flowers at the grocery store. And they're like, I would much rather buy your flowers than buy the flowers at the grocery store. Whereas they don't necessarily think of us for oh, I need to put in an order and it's my mother's birthday in 2 weeks. I'll phone up Serena, which fair enough. I don't deliver. I'm not oh yes, let me put in an order, for in the middle of the winter. I'm not a florist, right? So it's a little bit of a different business model. But I feel like people are really receptive to non-grocery store flowers, but the convenience of grocery store flowers. Okay, what is the age of your customers at market? So this, I'm like, this is a good Ian question. He's making popcorn for the kids, so he might come back. But I would say that the age of our customer is kind of, there's a group that is older, probably like retired age, and they're like, they have the time to be able to regularly come down to the farmer's market. Go ask Daddy.
Is this one of the videos that I can't be in?
No, but you can on Wednesday. Okay. Yeah, so there's like this kind of retired age, and they're very committed to like shopping at the farmer's market. They probably come to the farmer's market for like the midweek farmer's market and the weekend farmer's market. They've been buying from the farmer's market long enough that they know that getting fresh veggies tastes like way better, so it's like worth coming down to the market and it's worth the money. And they come like regularly, they have their favorites, they know what they want, and they come early to the market because they want to get there and they want to buy everything while it's still there and they want to beat the rush. And then there's another category that we do quite well with for the flowers, which is kind of like a more like middle-aged to, like, I wouldn't say like young. I don't think there's like, very like many like 20-year-olds, but kind of like people in their like late 20s to like their early 30s, to mid 30s to late 30s, like kind of similar age to us. That's a weird noise. It's distracting. Don't do that. No, don't do that. It's weird. And so they come and they're treating the market more as an event, right? So they usually come kind of at like 11 o'clock, and they come and they like check out the market and they like get a snack, and it's kind of like a brunch, activity type thing. It's like they go to the, okay, like I actually really don't like that. Okay, so don't do that. Okay. Yeah, so they come and it's like an event and they like are there to like treat themselves. So we sell lots of bouquets to those people. But I don't know, like I wouldn't want to say that like, we have a specific age that we're like going for. Everyone buys from us. We have like young, we have like teenagers who will come and like buy from us. We have
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know, maybe they like live on their own, like older teenagers, or like not like out
Like
of school.
18-year-old.
Yeah, like 18, like they're a teen.
And people who are old, like grandmas and grandpas.
Yeah, we have everyone. Everyone comes to the farmer's market.
Even babies.
Even babies come to the farmer's market, right? Everyone comes to the farmer's market.
Even cats.
Sometimes there's cats. Okay,
Mom.
Next question. Do you ever sell bouquets of herbs like mint or basil? So we used to bring herbs down to the farmer's market. We didn't sell like a mixed thing of herbs. We used to sell like small bunches, and we'd sell them for like $2 or 3 for $5. But they didn't really do very well. The basil sells well early on in the season. And if we took all of our basil and like took it down to like a commercial kitchen and made pesto, we'd be able to sell that like crazy. But people, it doesn't really sell very well. We can sell it for a lot more money as filler in flower bouquets than we can for selling it for like culinary purposes. And what it came down to for us getting rid of selling that is we didn't have the space, right? We'd bring them down and we'd sell like $10 or $15 worth of herbs every market. But it meant that we were sacrificing table space, so why would I bring down a whole display? Okay, go see Daddy. Okay, Ian, can you get her out of here? Yeah, why would we sacrifice what could have been $100 worth of sales for? Hey, Ian, why don't you come back? Like, yeah, it you know, the table space has like a real estate cost, and herbs just weren't making the cut. Okay. Do you ever add dried flowers to fresh bouquets? So you totally could do that. So the one trick for putting the dried flowers into the fresh flowers is that if you have the stems of the dried flowers in the water, they'll like get kind of like rotten. So what you would want to do if you're putting the dried flowers in with the fresh flowers is you'd want to have short stems, right? So like let's say like the stems are this tall, right? Like right here. This is where the vase ends, and this red is the water, right? So like all your flowers, you want them down in the water in the vase, but the dried flowers you'd want them only like up here. So you maybe like tuck them in after. But I've seen people do it, and I like the look. But also like a lot of the best dried flowers look the same fresh as they do dried. You know, like the statice and the straw flowers, you know, and the grasses and all those types of things. So you can have them fresh and then have them, you know, in the bouquets, even though they dry well. I think a lot of people just use the fresh version of the dried flowers. Okay, let's see. A young couple would like to know what flowers sell best. So my advice to people who want to grow flowers is sunflowers. Like that's all you need. You could have like a business where it's like just sunflowers. Because it's, you know, I would say, okay, so we have a video which is from last winter with Flower Hill Farm, and it's called the 10 most profitable flowers. And I think like that video is my advice, because it doesn't matter what flower sells the best. It matters if you can make money on that flower, right? So there's lots of things that sell amazing that are hard to make money on. You know, like a good example is those like 5,000 tulips that we planted. Tulips, they sell incredibly well. But the margin of error for being able to make money on it is quite slim. So you could plant tulips and sell every single tulip and still not make any money because you like had issues in your production. But sunflowers, they're very popular. They sell really well, and they're simple to grow, and they're easy to grow, like labor and like growing wise. So sunflowers are like, if you're gonna grow anything, grow sunflowers, you know, and then from there you can just build on. But yeah, check out the 10 most profitable video, because we talk about, you know, like how you need to consider labor, and you have to consider how well stuff sells. But it's a pretty good list there. Will you be doing 2 farmers markets in the future and the roadside stand? Yeah, so we're 100%. We're doing Saturday Kelowna Farmers Market. And then the plan for next year is we want to have bouquets in the roadside stand every day. And so what we're thinking is we will plan for the roadside stand to open at like 12, right? Because, you know, I think I said this at the end of our last video. One of the so Saturday is very busy for the roadside stand, but the other day that's probably our busiest day is like Thursday afternoon, right? That was always like a really big seller for food. And it's because people were doing their grocery shopping Thursday after work, so that they were ready to relax on the weekend. And in that same kind of thing, the roadside stand, because so many people drive by the roadside stand on their way home from work. So the roadside stand actually some of the busiest times of the day for it is 3 to 5 weekdays. So we ideally would like to open the stand at noon, maybe a little bit earlier on the Saturdays, but open it at noon and, have it go into, so you could stop there on your way home from work and then go later too, right? So that for these people who maybe had to run errands after work and then, they're kind of getting home or like have things that they want to do after dinner. We were doing 12 to 7 as the time, and that was like a pretty good window. Not very many, 5 to 6, not very many people would show up, but we actually did have people showing up at like kind of 6 to 7. So, it was kind of like earlier, 3 to 5 was really busy, and there'd be people stopping by earlier in that kind of noon to 3 window. And then it would be like, oh, no one's coming, we could close it. And then there'd be this like kind of blip again of people when it was kind of dark. So the plan is Saturday farmers market every day with the roadside stand, having bouquets in there every day so people can get into the routine that they can just stop there. And then maybe something else. So the Kelowna Farmers Market is Saturdays and Wednesdays. So we could do the Wednesday, but then there's also a market downtown Kelowna that's on the Sundays. And so that would be a different customer. That would be like, it's in a different area of town. There'd be more tourists. Tourists do buy the flowers. So maybe the Sunday market would be more valuable to us than the Wednesday. And then another thing that I was thinking about, which was like totally off my radar, this is like a random thought that I was having this morning, is we could maybe even do our local farmers market. It's on a Friday evening or a Friday afternoon. It's really inconvenient to pair up with the Saturday farmers market. But if we're doing just flowers, everything's more convenient, right? Everything's more convenient. The work is more streamlined. We're just like making the bouquets. So maybe it would be worthwhile for us to go down to that market, even if it isn't like every week, every second week, to go down to let people know that we have flowers in our roadside stand every single day, kind of go back to doing what we did in that first year, rebuild some local customers, get the bug in people's ears. The local market really suffered with COVID. It also lost its like excellent location due to a bunch of construction over the last couple of years. But it is back in its spot. The construction was a new school getting built, and the time of the market was like 3 to 6 or like 2 to 6 or something. So it could be busier than ever because it could be busy with, like in June especially, it could be busy with people picking up their kids after school. Like, oh, the farmer's market, let's pop in after I get my kids, and we're there. Oh, look at these beautiful flowers. Buy these flowers, come to our farm stand. So there's other markets. There's other ideas. Okay, let's see. When should we start our Lisianthus seeds? So I'm going to start my Lisianthus seeds. Never, because I sucked. I had them last year and I killed them. I bought plugs for this year. So I don't know when those are coming. Whoever's sending them to me knows when they're coming, and I need to find out when they're coming. But they're going to be showing up for me in the spring. When I personally would start my Lisianthus plugs is in January, because they grow so slowly. They're like fossils, trying to get them to grow. So you're definitely getting close if you're similar to me, to when. Okay, this was in capitals, but I saw this. Okay, Salanova lettuce is the only place you can get Salanova lettuce is at Johnny's Seeds. It's only by them, so the only place you can get it is from them. But if you're in Canada, it's really easy to shop at Johnny's. The only thing is their shipping is a little pricey. So for me, knowing that their shipping is pricey, I try to make only like one order with Johnny's a year. So I'll decide everything that you want if you're going to order from Johnny's, and then make one good order. But honestly, price wise, I found even after when I put in the conversion from Canadian dollars to American dollars, Johnny Seeds prices were like the same or better than like local Canadian sources. So the main expense from shopping at Johnny's is just the fact that shipping's a little bit more expensive than domestic shipping. Um, why don't you do a flower CSA with pickup at the farm stand? Okay, so we talked about this. We talked about this earlier in the video, but so our thinking is why would we pre-sell something to pick up at the farm stand if they can just come and grab a bouquet from the farm stand, right? And the other thing about a CSA and pickup at the farm stand is we pretty much could never have a CSA be pickup at the farm stand because we can't have a pre-sold item out on display with all the items that are there for sale, because as soon as you do that, someone is going to like grab the item that you've already sold. We did, so I had some seed garlic. I bought way too much seed garlic, so I sold my leftover seed garlic on Facebook this fall, and I did have some of them available. Like people bought them and then like prepaid for it, and then I had them in the farm stand. But I was having issues of like even with that where it was like no one was even coming to the farm stand, like it wasn't available. People didn't know it was there. It had someone's name written on it, and I still had a few of them like disappear. I was at the point that I was like kind of hiding it, and I was like telling people it's hidden behind this thing in the farm stand. But yeah, it's very complicated. So the farm stand is out on the road, but where we were selling on the property before is if you come down our driveway, we have like a carport, and we had it like set up. It has a table and it has a fridge and stuff. And like that is the spot that we use normally for stuff that's like pre-sold. So it would be like if you want to like see what we have available, like go check out the farm stand. If you wanted to pre-buy something, I'd probably be like grab it from the fridge in the carport, so then I can guarantee that that no one's gonna grab it from the farm stand. Okay, and then how many flower CSA shares will you be doing next year? So at this point, I don't think we're gonna do a CSA. I don't think that we need to. And I said this before, right? Like if we're not selling out of flowers, there's no reason that people have to pre-order flowers. And it's a lot of work to coordinate like the pickup times, make everything work, all the communication. You have to communicate to sell it when you pre-sell it, and then you have to communicate every single time for like when to come and what to get it, and it's just it's hard to get people to commit, and I get it. If I bought myself a flower CSA, I'd probably leave half of them because I'd be like, I just can't figure out how to get there to the place that I need to go on time. I'm much more of an a la carte shopper than a CSA shopper personally. So and then the other thing too about CSAs, which makes me like a little bit reluctant, is lots of people do the CSAs, and they offer like free delivery, and like I'm just like we don't want to deliver. If there was like 20 people who were like getting bouquets and we could go deliver it all in the same like 2-hour period in the one area near our house, that'd be different. But I'm not gonna drive for like an hour. I'm not gonna like go drive around town to like drop off like 4 bouquets, because I just don't have time for that. And I have zero interest in that. Ian and I both just don't like driving. So we don't really want to set up our business as a business that is doing delivery, because we don't want in the long run we don't want to be doing delivery. I think if we were doing any sort of delivery, it would be us doing like wholesale orders, and it would be like, okay, person is bought a couple $100, we're gonna deliver it. then it starts to make sense. Okay, next question. What are your favorite sunflowers for selling? So at this point, I'm getting all of my sunflowers from Sunflower Selections. And I would say it is hard to beat the Pro Cuts. So the Pro Cut sunflowers, the reason why they're the ones you want to get if you're a flower farmer is, first of all, they look like perfect. It's like crazy, and I'd seen them in grocery stores. You see those like the sunflowers that florists use, and it's like, how do they look so perfect that they look fake? Those are the Pro Cuts, right? They look so perfect that they don't look real. And they're consistently like that, right? Like you plant 1,000 seeds, 1,000 of them all look exactly the same. So they're like a really nice product. And then the other thing about them is, so they're a single stem, and they're timed like so tight, right? So they say they're like a 60-day, or it's like 62, or I forget how many days. But they grow super fast, and so when things have like the DTM, days to maturity, it's a ballpark, right? And with flowers, days to maturity is usually like when they flower. And like they can say, oh, it's like a 100-day days to maturity, and it could take 150 days until they flower. Like it's a very vague number. But with Pro Cut sunflowers, you're kind of like, okay, like on day 58, 3 of them opened up, and then on day 59, like 10 of them opened up, and then on day 60, like in your planting of like 400, then on day 60, like, oh my god, like 15% opened, and the next day another 15%. They all are ready in this kind of like 1 week window. So like, or 10 days. I'd say they have like a 10-day harvest window, which is like crazy. It's crazy, like incredible that they've been developed so well. So they're really good to grow, because you can plant them. You can plant them and be like, I know, in 60 days from now. And so what we do is, because I plant a couple different, so the different colors have different days that they're ready. So I'd go and I'd plant a bed of 400, and I do 100 seeds each of 4 different varieties, and then I would be able to pick off of it for 2 weeks, right? Because they have the 10-day window, but then the timing would like I'd have more of this color on the 1 week and more of the other color on the other week. And then so every 2 weeks I'd plant a new bed. And by doing that, I always had sunflowers, right? They were like so steady, and you could time it. They were like math. And then you cut them, and then they're done, right? So then you rip them out, put something else in, because it's only in ground for 2.5 months basically. But yeah, so Pro Cuts for those, and then there's a bunch of different colors. And then another one that I really liked that we did, so we grew some doubles. We did Double Quick, and then I also did Green Burst, Starburst. And so I really liked the look of the Green Burst, but they're a branching one, and it's hard to beat how the single stem grows for if you're producing lots. Right? If you are growing for your like home garden, the branching varieties of sunflowers are the best, and then you want to give them lots of space, and then they'll keep blooming, right? They come up, and the top flower, like they come up and they grow like this, and then the top flower blooms, and then it dies, and then these ones bloom, and then these dies, and then these ones bloom, and then there's like some little shorties on the stem, and so you get a long period of flowers on them. But they just, the timing isn't as good as the single ones. Yeah, and so where I get all those, I don't know if I said that already, is from Sunflower Selections. They're the actual like from the breeder source. They're developed the Pro Cuts, and then they have a bunch of stuff. They have a bunch of branching stuff too. But yeah, so if I was only going to grow one flower, I'd grow sunflowers, and if I was only going to grow one sunflower, I'd grow Pro Cuts. And okay, let me just one more clarification on that. So the colors that I picked this year is I picked the downy mildew resistant orange, I think, which is like pretty classic. And I think it had a light colored center. And then I think I picked no, it had a brown center. It had a brown center. And then for this coming year, I'm doing a yellow one because the orange did good. And then I have the red, and then I have the whites, and then the double quick. But I'm going to do a standalone video, and like not as a live video. I'm going to do a standalone video of unboxing that, and I'll talk about like why I picked what. Hey, Ian, are you gonna come?
The kids are gonna start brushing their teeth in a couple minutes.
Do you want to like come for? Because like I'm getting pretty close to being done. He's like, I can hear him. He's on the other side of the door eating popcorn. He's listening to me. Okay, that's all the. I think I got through all of the like the bolded ones. Someone's asking on average how many sunflowers would you plant? So this last year, last year I planted way more sunflowers than what I thought I would be able to sell. And the reason why I did that was I wanted to get experience on growing steady sunflowers. To see, right? To see how this timing for the pro cuts. This was my first year with pro cuts. I need to be able to grow lots and to do it well. I need to be able to do it, right? Without messing up. So, like I said, every 2 weeks, I didn't direct seed them. I did them as seedlings. So every 2 weeks, I started up 4 128 trays of sunflowers. So I'd pick 4 colors, and I'd do 1 tray of each of the colors. And I did that every 2 weeks, and then I'd grow them out for about a week, and then I do transplants into a bed. And my takeaway from that, part of that also was I bought wind strip trays, which are a new type of tray, and I also was working by doing the 128 trays instead of the 72 trays. I was working on growing in like a lot smaller space. So I wanted also to get, because sunflowers are super easy to grow. So I wanted to get experience with using those trays so that I could grow better seedlings in those trays, because I like and at this point still I am struggling a little bit on using those new type of trays. It's a little bit of a learning curve for knowing how long to grow them in the tray, how they need to be watered. So I was doing it like for experience on the seedlings too. Yeah, but I think that going forward, I'm not gonna bother with doing them as seedlings. I'll do them as seedlings because basically, so the 128s are pretty small. They can't stay, and sunflowers grow really fast, so they can't be in the 128s for very long. I would probably start them early spring in soil blocks, which are of a size that I can fit 50 to a tray. So they're basically like my biggest plug size. So I would do soil blocks with the sunflowers, and I would start them maybe even 3 weeks ahead of time. I'd probably start, because sunflowers are frost sensitive as seedlings. They did really good once the plants were growing, of the frost not actually killing off the flowers. But yeah, so I'd probably start doing sunflowers in like a big plug, so I could grow them out, and I'd probably start them beginning of April, and then every week I would start more. And then as soon as I possibly could, I would transplant them. to get my absolute earliest sunflowers, because the earlier I can get them, the better. And like I can make good money on sunflowers because I sell them for $2.50 and they always sell. People always want sunflowers. So it might even be worth the value for me to put sunflowers into one of my high tunnels, like an unheated greenhouse. Maybe it would be valuable for me to be, putting sunflower seedlings into the greenhouse in April, to be able to get sunflowers like to pick for the beginning of June, to have that first flush of them. Because if I came to the market and like everyone's like selling like salad mix and no one has flowers, and I was like, look, I got sunflowers, like they would sell. They would do really well. And then so because I'm literally crop planning out loud. I'm sorry, guys. This sunflower thing that I'm talking about is really rambly because I'm all like, oh yeah, sunflowers. What am I gonna do? But so basically, I did them as plugs. But I think that for me, I don't have pests that eat the sunflower seedlings. So I think for me, it would be worth it to direct seed them. It's just so fast. And in the past, I have direct seeded my sunflowers. I kind of would do a bed of seedlings to get earlier flowers, and then I direct seed a bed to be like my second succession on sunflowers. But I think for going forward, because I have the Jang seeder, so before I use the Earthway seeder, and I would tape shut every second opening on like the biggest one, and so just like dump like a bunch of seeds, and it was like super dense and it was fine. But now I have a Jang seeder, and I can get it to drop at a really nice spacing. So I don't have to worry quite as much about having spacing like what you have for a transplant. And if it dropped way too many seeds, I could also just go in there with like a little skinny hoe, just like ruthless, just like murder a bunch of them. But yeah, I'd probably direct seed them, and I'd do the same thing that I did. Either I would blend my seeds into my Jane seeder. So just for convenience of not having to change the seed out, because changing the seed out is a little bit fussy. So I'd maybe be like, okay, there's 4 varieties that I want to grow together that I want available for 2 months from now, because I change my colors for the sunflowers. The first sunflowers I'm doing like whites, and I'm doing yellows, like brights and classic sunflower. And then I fade them from these like brights into a darker palette, into like the reds and the oranges and the browns, for into the fall, right? Because the reds and browns don't sell as much early in the season, but they sell better later. And then they blend really nicely with the amaranths, which are later. The brights, like I'll have brighter stuff, like different stuff. So I'm specific about planting different varieties at different times so that I have the colors I want to work with in the bouquets. So what I would probably do is I'd probably pick the 4 colors that I want, and I grab a handful and I blend them, just blend them, shake them into the seeder, take the seeder, do 4 rows, and I would do that every 2 weeks. And they'd be blended in the row, but it would be fine because they would kind of bloom at a different time anyways. And so then every 2 weeks I'd plant a new bed. And when I was doing them as seedlings, I was planting 400 per bed. So I was doing it at the same spacing as like what I do for the lettuce. So like every 6 inches, 4 rows across in my 30-inch beds with 18-inch pads. And then where I got my Jane cedar from. So I'm in Canada. So I bought my Jane cedar from this like really great mail, like, online farming store called Dubois Agronovator. And I think the website is DUBOISAG, Dubois Ag. And they have free shipping if you buy $200 or more. But yeah, so I think I got my Jang cedar from there, if I remember. But you can, the Jangs they're available lots of places. I think like Johnny's even has them. They're expensive though. They cost money. But they like, if so it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do seedlings, which is the reason why I'm going to the Jang. And I bought some wheels for the Jang to be able to plant sunflowers last year. So I'd already invested into like the tools that I need to be able to direct seed the sunflowers. For me to like blend up these seeds and load up my Jang, and I'd probably have to open it up and change the spacing. To get all prepped to do that would probably take about 10 minutes. And then to actually seed the bed would take like 5 minutes. And so we're like a 15-minute investment to do a single bed. And if I was like out there and I was like actually planting like multiple beds of sunflowers, the difference between doing one bed, which takes 5 minutes, and adding a second bed would be like 3 more minutes, right? So like it's very time efficient. I'll be there in a little bit. Okay. The doing the seedlings takes like way longer. Just even like I'd have to get my potting soil. I'd have to mix up my potting soil. I have to fill my trays. I still have to get the seeds and like decide what I'm gonna do. And then put them in, and then put the soil over top, and then take them and water them, and then I have to keep watering them and take care of the seedlings. What? Yeah. I'll do that. I'm almost done. Yeah. So even just using the Jang seeder over doing seedlings, I save huge amount of times. And then the issue with other seeders, so the Earthway is great for what it is, but you're not going to be able to get the spacing that's as accurate as the Jang seeder. And so if you need to, seeding takes a long time. So it's always worth it to get the seeder, because then you save the time. But then after that, the more accurate your seeder is, the more time you save, because you now don't have to go back and thin out your seedlings, right? Thinning seedlings takes time. So if you can buy the Jang seeder and it's expensive, but you don't have to thin seedlings, as a farm tool, it pretty quickly pays for itself. So they're expensive. It weighs like 1 million pounds. I did not expect that when I got it. It's like, I like, obviously I can lift it. It doesn't weigh 1 million pounds. It doesn't weigh 50 pounds. But it weighs enough that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to like haul this around all day. So it's a good quality tool. It's one of those things where I'm like, I suspect I'll have it for life. So it's good to invest in. Are there other flowers that I direct seed? There's lots of stuff that I direct seed. I literally don't have a list. Like zinnias you can direct seed. Though I direct seed a lot of stuff without using the seeder, because I direct seed into the landscape fabric. So because of that, I need to like pop a hole in the tiny hole of the landscape fabric. Anytime I can use the seeder, it makes sense to use the seeder, just because it's so fast. So last year I used the seeder for amaranth. I used the seeder for bachelor buttons. I used the seeder for larkspur. The sunflowers I used the seeder for. Grasses I used the seeder for. And like I could see it making sense to use it for cosmos, having like really dense cosmos. I could see the cedar working even for zinnias, especially if you're doing successions, so that they're a little bit closer together. Baby's breath for sure I'd use the cedar for. There's lots of stuff that you could use it. It's more just about like, how you want to grow it. So stuff that I would kind of harvest out, and want it denser to be like single stem growing is when I'm going to use the cedar. Stuff where it's like branching and like lots of stems off the one plant, you know, so like the zinnias, you know, they get quite branching. That, you know, I'm more doing direct seeding or transplants. You know, there's another one that I was just thinking. I don't know. It's more for me. Choosing the cedar is more about the way it's gonna grow and the way you're gonna harvest it, than it is even about the specific seed. You know, but there's some things where you can't, right? Where you have to do transplants. You know, stuff like tomatoes, where they have to grow for so long before they go out. But you know, the cedars are incredible for on the farming scale. You know, if you're a home gardener, right? They're really difficult to use if you're trying to plant like just a handful of stuff. It's way easier to just, you know, sprinkle the seeds by hand. Okay, so I need to get going. But I wanted to say a big thank you because we've had a couple gifts show up and they haven't had like little name slips in them. But I'm assuming that they're people from the YouTube buying them off of our Amazon wish list because they're wish list items. So someone sent us a pair of insulated gloves, and I want to say a big thank you. There's a pair for me and a pair for Ian. I realized because we went skating as a family. And I got these new insulated gardening gloves. You know, they're like the rubbery gardening gloves. And I'm like, oh, I can wear these because I realized I don't think I own gloves. You know, I have these like mittens that I like made for myself that like, you know, aren't super warm and aren't super great because I don't go outside. I'm like, no, it's too cold. I stay inside. I don't want to go outside. I don't know what the dried ornament flower comment is, but if you say it again, I can quickly answer it. But yeah, so thank you for that. It kept my hands nice and toasty. And then someone also sent us a box of elastics, and I was telling Ian, I was like, Ian, this is the gift that just keeps on giving, a box of elastics, because you know this is like for sure a couple months of like me having elastics because I always run out of them. I buy a few cases, like a few boxes every year at the beginning over the winter. And then like I forget where I put them. And so I'm always losing them. So I very much, it was a weird thing to put on the, on the gift list. But I very much appreciate. So thank you so much okay. So the size that I like 18 and an 18th of an inch elastics. Because they're skinny. So I just like that because they use less material. And then I like either 2-inch or 2.5 inch. But I would say if I started to do bigger bouquets, you know, I'm kind of limited to like how much I can do for the stems with the elastics being so small. I like them small because then I don't have to twist them as many times on the veggies. But the trick, so there's a trick where you like put the elastic over a stem and then you wrap it and then you put it over again. And to do that trick, I would need to have I'd need longer elastics. I probably want like a 3.5 inch elastic. And I'd maybe even need like a 1/4 inch just to give it like a little bit more strength. And the wider the elastic, the less stretchy it is too. But yeah, the size that I use is more motivated by what works well for flowers than what works well for veggies than what works well for flowers. And then I've been using them for 3 years, so now it's like I know how to use them, but they're not necessarily the size for what other people want. Okay, but I have to go because I have to go put my kids to bed. I can hear them. Ian's doing stories, and I have to get up there before the stories are over, or else Ian's gonna be in the chat being like, "Get up here." But thank you guys so much for hanging out. You know, we always appreciate that you guys like want to hang out with us and show up for these videos. If you haven't seen the video that we released on the weekend, definitely go check it out. I think it's a really fun video where you're showing like a bunch of the stuff about the different ways that we're doing the dried flowers, and honestly, I think that the market display, the Christmas market display, was maybe one of our most beautiful displays of the year. It looked really pretty. So I really enjoyed editing it to get to look back at how nice it looked last week. And then for this week, so I made a dried flower Christmas tree, and we filmed it. I have a little bit more work on it, but it's done. So that video is like going to come out like during the day tomorrow or like Wednesday morning. And then we're also going to make a video that's like how to make the ornaments. In the video, I talk about making the one that I said just came out. I talk about making the ornaments, but I had to edit out a bunch of it. I was talking too much about them. So I'm going to show making them, give all my tips, give all my tricks for doing them, talk all the details about the ornaments, standalone video. And then there was another Christmas theme. Oh, Christmas wreaths. And then because we had lots of questions about the wreath clamp. The wreath clamp's cool. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, what is this? I need this. It blew my mind. So we're going to make a video making some wreaths with the wreath clamp, explaining how to make the wreaths, explaining how the wreath clamp works, showing some more stuff. And everyone's been giving lots of really great ideas for the wreaths in the video that came out on the weekend. And I've been laughing because I'm like, oh, great minds think alike, because you guys are all like giving me all the ideas for what I like. I'm like, oh yeah, totally. That's exactly what I'm planning on doing in the wreath making video, right? So I think we'll come up with like 4 styles. We'll do one that's like just greenery, and then we'll do one that has like rainbow, like dried flowers. Like we're gonna do like a couple different styles of the wreaths. And we're just gonna make them for the fun of the video. So it's not like I have to worry. Yeah, pull out all my kales, my last few kales. So yeah, so we're gonna. This is our Christmas series of videos because we don't really make Christmas videos. So we're gonna do the ornaments, the wreaths, and this dried flower Christmas tree. So that'll kind of be the fun stuff that we have coming out over like the next week and a half. And then I think because we need to do our books, we need to figure out how much money we made, and then we're gonna like start into like year in review type videos. So we're really excited about what's coming up. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye now.